This is Ulrich Gans of Seattle, whose lifelong interest in wildlife photography began in his youth in Switzerland. He is also an enthusiastic whitewater canoeist and has made many wilderness trips with his friends Al Zob and his family to photograph and enjoy this exciting sport. Join Ulrich Gans on the Audubon Wildlife Theater, featuring the adventures of the greatest outdoor photographers in the world.
Family of whitewater enthusiasts. My friend Al Zob, his oldest daughter Elise, and his other daughter Ilona. Helping with the big double canoe, Al's wife Sandra. And someone who's never left behind, their dog, Tarsh. That's a Hungarian word meaning friend. We drove from Seattle north as far as the roads would take us, and then took to the air. Our destination was a vast area of wilderness in the Northwest Territories, along a rough and little-known river on the eastern slopes of the Mackenzie Mountains, 40 minutes by air from the end of the road. Al and I had scouted this country the year before, and he decided then that his daughter should have the chance to see at first hand one of the fastest disappearing resources on Earth. Genuine wilderness. We planned a 70-mile, 3.5-week journey down a river, starting above the timberline at this lake, to a rendezvous a few miles below our river's junction with the Kiel. The Kiel River, a few thousand feet lower, flows into the Mackenzie on its way to the Arctic Ocean. For almost a month, we'd be completely alone, with civilization hundreds of miles away, and the nearest help, in the event of an emergency, a long way downriver. Although we'd planned carefully, both Al and I had a few anxious second thoughts as our aircraft, the last link with comfort and security, took off down the lake. We were alone. But the younger members of this party had no misgivings. They were eager to see the country. So, with sunset scheduled for around midnight, we set up camp, and then began to explore the lake. These moose, standing out in deep water, were the first we'd seen. We would see many more. We heard the Arctic terns long before we saw them. Elise walked out along the sand spit and was able to stand very close to them. They seemed almost reluctant to fly. This end of the lake drains into the river that we had come to paddle. In the long summer evening, Al and Ilona even had time for a warm-up paddle in the double canoe. Later, with the sun still setting, Al studied his topographical maps and planned the next day's activities. First thing in the morning, we sighted a cow moose swimming the lake, and Al immediately set off in one of the kayaks. We had heard that the Indians who used to hunt this country would often use canoes to herd the moose close to shore before killing them, and Al was interested in seeing whether such a thing was possible. But his motives were peaceful, and since she was close to shore, there was little danger of her panicking and getting into trouble. The moose is an exceptionally strong swimmer and will frequently cross large bodies of water. Every time the cow reached a point near the shore where she could touch bottom, she would outdistance Al and then head out for open water again. Finally, she swam away up the shore and made off across the tundra. Later in the day, we loaded up some gear and set out across the lake for a day-long hike up into one of the nearby mountains. The girls were astonished to see bumblebees in this country. I was less surprised, for I knew that it was only the steady winds that kept the mosquitoes from plaguing us. And if there are plenty of mosquitoes, why not a variety of insect life? And a variety of plant life, including lichens, like this bright orange type, growing on a rock high above a jewel of a lake, which we quickly named Turquoise Lake. There were snowfields spotted all over the hills, and on almost every one we saw animals like the mountain caribou, or moose, or the occasional grizzly. During the day, these animals seemed to be drawn to these patches of snow. Perhaps here they could find relief from mosquitoes or the hot sun. The girls soon located a snowfield of their own. A caribou buck watched us, shaking his head as though he just couldn't believe his eyes. We spent 4 days at our headwater lake, exploring, hiking, getting used to the country, putting the gear in shape, and resting up for the white water ahead of us. This run down the river would be mostly through fast rapids, and in water that was often shallower than we'd expected, in spite of our scouting. From the lake down to our rendezvous, the river drops 2,500 feet over a distance of 70 miles. We had calculated that this time of year, mid-July to mid-August, would be best for the river level. In a few weeks, the lake would be too shallow for an aircraft to land, and most of the waterway too shallow for even our kayaks. As it was, we found ourselves dodging rocks we thought would be below the surface. Al and Sandra are whitewater specialists, and they've trained their daughters well. Throughout the spring and early summer, they practiced on whitewater rivers near their home in Seattle. So now they were meeting this challenge with real excitement. The double canoe, called a barragan, carried a heavy load of cargo and was the hardest to handle. But it's designed for this kind of river running, and Al and Ilona controlled it well. Elise and Sandra, following in their lightly laden kayaks, kept pace with the big canoe. I rowed a double canoe a little smaller than Al's, and also carried a fair load. Since my job was to get this memorable journey on film, I often went on ahead and waited for them, or let them pass. Some days we'd stop early when we found a good spot for camp, and Sandra and the girls would cook up a meal. I've been on quite a few trips like this, and always lose weight, but not this time. On Sandra's cooking, I gained 5 pounds. Because of his personal war on the prairie dogs, I think Tarsh was the only member of the party who didn't gain weight. He worked so hard to get at them and got nothing but frustration and backtalk.